I remember like it was yesterday, coming in, sitting down there at the bar, and of course the beer looked different then. I remember sitting there really thinking, and I drank the first pint and then kind of just be able to relax and take a little bit of time off. But I drank a pint, drank another pint, and then thought to myself, I gotta get back to work.
Middlebury was a kind of free-spirited area to be in, and the students took advantage of that, and Rob joined in the fun.
Yes, he was.
The hair grew, then the beard came, and the hair grew longer.
He was a hippie, and so were we. At least I was. Mike was more preppy.
Well, Rob is different in that he didn't, as far as I know, come from any homebrewing past. He just needed a job. And somehow he ended up at Otter Creek. And quite frankly, I'm not exactly sure why. He just showed up in his white van.
And he came and worked for Otter Creek Brewing for exactly 1 year.
It was just fun to be around, so I was sad to see him go.
I wanted to brew a Belgian Style white beer, but I also thought it was important to brew our Belgian Style white beer. I tried to work within the style guidelines, maybe push them a little bit, but make the Allagash White uniquely Allagash.
Rob was like super nice guy, like super cool, and he came in and and we tried his beer, and I was like, wow, it's really great white beer. I'm a fan of the style. And he told me he was going to open a brewery focused around Belgian whites, and I was like, that's a bold move.
Was there a side door there? Yeah, I came in right there. So Rob is probably a line here, and literally overalls, in his hands and knees, running. He had everything in a perfect line. When I entered, and was the owner here and speaking, and I just remember walking over, and I'm like, you're gonna brew this, and are you gonna weld this together? And he's like, well, I haven't learned how to weld yet, but probably, and I get goosebumps every time I think about it.
We ran the 120-pound jackhammer. You see a jackhammer, you're like, oh wow, that would be fun. The novelty wears off very quickly.
He knew how to build doors and windows and stone, and he just had a great background. And
took a welding course.
It was fun to see him at the brewery running around and showing us his lab, which was like a broom closet, and very hush-hush about the ingredients, as if we had any desire or ability to make anything beside an omelet in the kitchen here,
It was an honor to have him think that we actually knew what he was talking about at the time.
Rob came at it from the perspective of the craft in a way that very few people have in the whole industry. Choosing to go outside of the mainstream for craft brewing at that time was really cool.
The early days were really struggling. Initially, he was struggling hard.
I probably should have come up with a style that would have supported us a little better by basically doing more volume. I'm sure if we'd have come out of the gates with a pale ale, we would have been much more sustainable in some of the early years. Instead, the first 10 years were a struggle.
That English style is what we were comfortable with. Here, Rob's bringing in a totally different process, a different product, with overtones of different flavors that we weren't used to.
The white style, and then therefore Allagash White at that time was, people just didn't know what to think of that beer. And so we ran into that hurdle at every bar that we tried to get the beer on, every event we ever poured the beer at. There was this, why is this beer cloudy? Why does it smell, this beer must be infected, it smells funny.
Every single brew fest that we went to, every single tasting event, tour that we ran, one of the first bits that we covered with folks was, the questions we would get would be, why is this beer cloudy? We're like, well, it's meant to be this style of beer, it's meant to be cloudy.
Yeah, I think they diversified what a beer could be. I remember Rob telling me one day that he'd go up to somebody and have a bottle of beer and they'd look at it and go, what is this?
Right,
this cloudy, hazy Belgian beer nobody had ever heard of. Maybe they've heard of it, but couldn't imagine anything other than what was being served around Portland at the time.
Coriander in a beer didn't sound really
where the market might be going at the time, but since then, obviously, we're all proven wrong.
I was definitely skeptical of how the brewery could grow. There was certainly not a specific point in time where all of a sudden people knew Allagash White and knew the style. It was a progression, but it was a fairly quick progression over probably, somewhere in the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, 2006, where it started to shift a little bit. And then all of a sudden we found ourselves sometime around 2008 or so maybe, where we were in all these markets and everybody wanted more.
All of a sudden, I noticed the tap handle in a lot more locations. The product started to sell itself. They didn't want to just be an old port beer. They wanted to broaden the market. It's like they wanted to be in different age groups, different profiles of people. It wasn't going to be a beer that was just for 21-year-olds.
Allagash White is obviously so critically important to the company. It is our flagship beer. It's a huge percentage of what we make, but it's still a beer that everyone here is so proud of, and in its own right is a very unique beer. It's been so important to our growth, and it's also allowed us to do so much other fun stuff.
We saw that in Santa Monica. That was one of the first
Yes,
ones we
at
had.
very upscale restaurants, and it is popular everywhere. Everyone seems to love it.
I went to a Bruins game last year and had an Allagash White at the Garden. I mean, if you had told me that was going to happen, I would have thought you were completely crazy.
I did a quick count. In the last 12 months, we've sold about over 12,000 pints, which, I can't put that in keg terms right off the top of my head, but...
Give me a minute.
He's really done it right, and he's focused on the product, and really the product has been fantastic from the beginning. The White is one of my favorite beers, and it's just so nice. He nailed it from the start, and he's kept that product right where he wants it to be. It's really been impressive.
I used to do a lot around here, and the first year or two I pretty much did everything because I was alone. And every time I delegate something, it gets done better than I ever imagined it could have been done, way better than I ever did it. And after 20 years of doing that, it's amazing just to see the momentum everyone has brought to this team in each of the different divisions of the company. It's cool to see everyone come up with this stuff that just constantly makes us better. The one common thread through everyone here is everyone is passionate about what they do. No one shows up here, punches in, kind of does the minimum and just skates through their day, punches out and leaves. Everyone is just engaged. It feels like all the time, and just coming up with these great ideas, how we can improve process, how we can improve quality, how we can be innovative. But you have 90 people now contributing these great ideas. So I feel like there's just far more momentum than we've ever had before in the history of the company. I gotta start again because I just did a big chili burp from the bear.